This is Travis Wayne Goodsell, and if those of you who are following, you probably noticed that there has been a slowdown in videos, but yet some really big ones because of the breaking news for the Mormon Church. I don't know if Mormons really understand. I really don't. I mean, it's obvious they don't in regards to criticism of the church. When people, especially like me, who know of the faults of the church, and we're not talking about, simple typing errors, simple, oops, wrong reference. I mean, we're talking serious errors. And yet Mormons will defend those errors, defend the church at all cost, and won't say, hey, wait a minute, this is an error, this is a serious error, and the leaders of the church are not correcting this. They're not even listening to us. They pass it off to the stake presidents, that we then have to comply or we're gone. And so, yeah, Mormons don't do that. They attack me. The thumbs down and the abusive language, the false accusations. I've been doing comment reviews, and so I point out the abuses that are happening to me. But you guys didn't get a video for a guy who called me a son of perdition, even. And if you are familiar with the Mormon Church, you know that that's the worst you can call a person. That's beyond Antichrist. That's beyond an apostate. A son of perdition is the worst name you can call a person. And I doubt that the Mormon understood what he was doing by calling me that, because it means that I have to be celestially approved. I have to be almost godlike. I'm all set to go. All I have to do is die, and I'm in the celestial kingdom. That's the type of person who is qualified to transform into a son of perdition. Not just a regular Mormon who makes comments negative against the church. No, those people never qualify to be a son of perdition. Only those who are right there ready to become gods, and they say, nope, I'm out. Those are the only ones who become sons of perdition. And I don't think that guy realized it. And so, yes, a lot of the abuse towards me is because of the ignorance of Mormons. They don't know their doctrine. All they're doing is, I'm a member of the church, therefore I will defend the church at all costs. I won't research them. I won't study them. I won't do anything to go against them. I obtained a document, and I promised that I would discuss this, and so allow me to make a JPEG picture of it here, so that you can see what the church is doing. Let's see if I can find it here. think it's evidence, because there's a lot of, in order to make thumbnail pictures, I have to assemble pictures together, and the only way I can figure out how to do that is because I can't find a direct app to assemble collage pictures, is by putting them on my Word program, save them as a PDF, and then use my PDF to JPEG app, and then use my other app to transform it into a sliced JPEG, because I don't bother trying to trim it on the Word. Okay, it's not, oh yeah, it would be under downloads. Faith Crisis Report, there it is. LDS Personal Faith Crisis. It's too small, I can't say it. Alright, alright, how do I get to the other pages? There it is. Looks like I'll have to do both pages. LDS Personal Faith Crisis, the cover page, and then they have a quote title as their theme for the document. So that's gonna make it tough, because we're gonna have to, nope, did it for me. Okay, alrighty, and then now we go to the Photoshop Express. In the Adobe Photoshop Express, you can get a download version, but that is crap. You have to get the app. Okay, then I've got to clear out my computer today so that I can help Russ with the long overdue promise of getting him some of the older conference talks on video. Alright, this is April 2013, proprietary and confidential, and somebody leaked it. Okay, well, this is already showing that it's a regular page size, so I guess we don't need to do anything with it. Let's try the other one. Oh man, whoops, went too far. There we go. Yeah, this one we can trim. I'll probably cut from here and put these on the video maker, and then I'll talk to you from the video maker. Okay, because this is horrifying, what the church was doing back in 2013 when I was locked up by the church. And then Faith Crisis Report may be our title for the video. We'll have to figure out a way to put that in there. Okay. Alright, let's switch over to the video maker. to do a narration. All right, you might be wondering who Clayton M. Christensen is. He pops up all over a Google search. He is Mormon, but he is not a member of the 70 or in any position in the church, I guess. I'm at his Wikipedia site. He's, well, let's see, he currently serves as the Kim B. Clark Professor of Business Administration at the Harvard Business School of Harvard University. And they say he's best known for his book, Disruptive Innovation, that's the concept from his book, The Innovator's Dilemma. Apparently has something to do with internet data information, which is interesting because of the information data that was taken from Facebook, given to the Russians, and then redistributed as propaganda advertising to America and even Utahns, Mormons, in the form of lies to convince everybody to vote for the most horrible human being on the face of this earth's existence, and have him become king of the United States and literally run us into the ground. So, way to go, Mormons. You've violated the warning of the Book of Mormon. But anyway, this guy, he was born on April 6th. Isn't that special? 2 days before the real birth of Jesus. Alright, so that's who he is. And so apparently he went to the apostles to give this little faith crisis report back in 2013. Okay. Yeah, who cares about his awards? Alright, let me exit out of this. Okay. So right here from the title, this is why you don't trust anybody who goes against the principles of the Book of Mormon. And if you don't recognize it, don't find fault, find a remedy. You may think, oh, yeah, I'm going to live my life after this. Well, yeah, you'd be wrong. This is the most horrible thing that you could do. Now, let's expand this first before we explain it. What we have is a situation with, let's try medical doctors. You go to the medical doctor because you fell off your roof and you hurt your leg is in severe pain. So you go to the doctor because you need to find out if it's broken, if the bones are broken, or if you just got a sprain or what. So you go to the doctor and he says, you know, I'm just going to sit you down on this couch and we're going to just talk for an hour. And at the end of that hour, he says, you know, we're not going to look for a cause. You know, I'm not really interested in your having fallen off a roof. Let's talk about how you're feeling pain right now. Can you see what nightmare that would be? And then at the end of that hour, he says, oh, no, time is up now. Here's a prescription for some pain meds, some opioids that you can get addicted off of. And I'll see you next week and we can talk more about this pain you're feeling. Do you see where the error lies in that kind of action? This is what this concept is talking about. Don't find fault, find a remedy. The doctor was following that principle in my little analogy here. This is the worst thing anybody could ever do. And this is a Harvard graduate who's got a famous book, and he's going to the leaders of the church, talking to them about the Mormon faith crisis. And he's trying to convince the leaders of the church leaders don't need to look to you because you were lying and deceiving them about church history, because that's what this gets involved, this document. And the definition of faith crisis incorporates this little quote here. And so what he proposes is, deceiving members more in order to cover up church history again, in order to retain member attendance, retain member activity. This is a cover-up of the cover-up in order to keep people in the church and continually paying them money. This is what Clayton Christensen, Harvard Mormon boy, was suggesting to the prophets. This was his little presentation to them. And if we look, yes, that's exactly what the church has been doing. They have been following this guy's example, this guy's recommendation. They've been telling Mormons, don't find fault with us leaders. We're going to lie so that you will stick around. And so, what are some of the examples? The gospel topic essays, for example. Although I think the gospel topic essays came out after this. Let's LDS.org. Oh man. And gospel topic essays. Alright, gospel topic essays. It's not saying when they started. Are Mormons Christian? No. The temple in Rome this weekend, where all the prophets will make themselves vulnerable to a society that hates the Mormon church. No, there's no... They're not given a date of when they're making these things. And I think it was 2011, but... Okay, nope. Originally published November 2013. Oh, Nelly. The gospel topic essays are a direct result of this guy, Clayton M. Christensen, and his report to the prophets. So they must have had some people work on a... oh, man. Because, yeah, this was April 2013, according to that black page that I showed previous to this page. So, yeah, he presented this to the church, and the church said, great. And over the summertime, the church had gotten some people to write up articles, and boom, November, they came out. Oh, man, this is damaging to the church. Oh, Nelly. So, yeah, my little polygamy video series that I did, showing that Joseph Smith was not a polygamist. Sure enough, I was right on target. The church is lying, and this is where it comes from. This is Clayton Christensen's suggestion to lie to the members of the church that Joseph Smith was to blame for polygamy in order to justify the succession of Brigham Young, rather than blaming Brigham Young for polygamy, because they've already blamed him for racism. They had to do that for race in the priesthood, because you have to say, hey, Joseph Smith gave priesthood to the blacks, and so you can't say that Joseph Smith was a racist, because that would ruin things. And so what the church did is they legitimately blame Brigham Young and say, you know, hey, this was God's way of using this man at this time, and it's okay. But when polygamy is concerned, you can't say, oh, it was Brigham Young also, because then you have no foundation for its occurrence. See, this is a different tactic that the church was using. And they went along with all of the accusations that came after Brigham Young established polygamy. And I believe it was 1853 from the video series that I did. And so instead of being honest with the members of the church and saying, hey, no, Joseph Smith didn't practice polygamy, it was Brigham Young, because they can't do that, because now that succession of Brigham Young is now in jeopardy, which means the current presidents of the church are now in jeopardy, because if the Brigham Young is not right, then none of his successors are right. They're not chosen by God. They're not having the mantle of leadership authority, and etc., etc. And so what this is unbelievable. This is shockingly horrifying. That this is where the gospel topic essays came from, and this intended to be from Clayton Christensen as a way to save the church, and instead what it did was cause the great exodus from the church. 13 million members are gone. They don't go to sacrament anymore. And the church doesn't report that. They only go by, you know, who's baptized and who filed a report or form saying, you know, I don't want my membership records anymore. I'm out of here. That's the only reporting that the church actually calculates. They don't calculate the actual number of members who are attending. Well, they do, but they don't reveal it to us. Central America had their sacrament meeting attendance leaked. So it is known to the church that there was a huge exodus. But it's not known to the members of the church. Again, the church doesn't want the members to find fault with them. They want to find a remedy to cover up what's really going on, that the church has collapsed. And so, yeah, what Clayton Christensen did was destroy the church. But it's not his fault, per se. It was the prophets of the church who got fooled by this false doctrine. And that's why we have the gospel topic essays, is because of Clayton Christensen. That was his suggestion to the apostles as to how to resolve the membership concerns, because the internet was now available and members of the church were searching the internet and they're finding everything now that the church is false. And so the church listened to Christensen and said, hey, gospel topic essays. Oh man, this is bad news, Mormons. We have now found the fault, but we're not going to cover it up with a remedy. We're going to expose this wound, and we're going to bleed it out and cause severe pain by pouring salt in that wound. So right here, this is proof that the church isn't true. Because members of the church were finding out that the church had been lying to them about church history. And so this was their result. This was their way to manage the situation, by further deceiving and lying to you. Oh man. I was thinking that the gospel topic essays came out before this, but now it's clear this is the fault of the gospel topic essays. And the gospel topic essays were a remedy rather than a cure. Because the cure should have been a confession to the members of the church. The presidents of the church, the leaders of the church should have come out and said, we've been lying to you. The church history is false. Everything that you've been taught in Sunday school, in seminary, in institute, it's wrong. We need to give you our apologies. It was previous leaders who started this cover-up, but we want to give a clean slate and start over. We want to fill you in on what really happened. We aren't going to wait for Travis in 2018 to 2019 to finally reveal the truth to you, where you give him a bad time about it. We're going to come out clean ourselves and tell you the truth. Remember, they're prophets. They're supposed to be able to see the future. Remember? They should have seen me coming. But nevertheless, they chose to cover it up instead of come clean and tell you the truth and follow the stages of repentance as they've told you to obey, but apparently are not willing to do themselves. Do as we say, not as we do, is their philosophy. So yeah, like I showed you in the analogy, you do not want a doctor to follow this practice. You know, if you have a broken leg, if you have a sprained ankle or something of that nature, you need to put it in a cast. You need to have it in a brace, depending on what it is. You don't want to be given opioid drugs to get you addicted to that so that you are distracted away from the real problem. But that's what the church did to you. Is that the real problem they distracted you from and hooked you on an opioid, a spiritual opioid, shall we say, with these gospel topic essays. Wow. It's amazing. The more I learn about the church, the more I realize how wrong it is. You know, I knew there were things that didn't make sense, but before Bishop Hammond gave me the threat to stop posting that the Book of Mormon is the official doctrine of the church, or never bother coming back to church, I would have never gone on this path. Because as a person who's been to school studying science, even philosophy of science, and have made discoveries in Paleo-Hebrew and Egyptian glyph translation, and making the connection between the Egyptian glyphs and the Bible. Because you've heard me talk about the gospel topic essay on historicity and translation of the Book of Abraham. The church is, again, doing that same tactic. They're saying Joseph Smith was wrong, and what Joseph Smith was doing was just a spiritual record. He was getting revelation. It wasn't a translation. Yes, it was a translation, and I expose all that. That the church is wrong. That they're supposed to have the key of translation, and yet they're claiming they don't have it. That Joseph Smith just had spiritual revelation. If Joseph Smith had spiritual revelation, why then do the church leaders not come out with their own spiritual revelation. They say, hey, we figured out how to do it. And here's our translation of this particular ancient document. And the ancients or the scholars of that particular field will go, no, that's not a translation, but the church doesn't care. This is spiritual revelation. Why can't they do that? That's what Joseph did. They would be able to prove to the church that the church has the key of translation as seers. According to the Book of Mormon, when the story of Ammon. Remember, he's talking to King Limhi, and Limhi had found some ancient records, and they didn't know how to translate them, and Ammon finally gets to them to save them, and says, oh yeah, King Mosiah, he's got interpreters that can translate this. He's a seer. Why can't the church leaders do that? That would be the perfect cover-up remedy. If you're claiming Joseph Smith just got inspiration and created the Book of Abraham, why can't any of the successive prophets from Brigham Young do the same thing? It's easy to do. As an author, I don't do much fiction work. I don't think I've ever done a fiction work, actually. But that's all it is. Anybody can do it. Millions of people have done it. Why can't the prophets do it? So, yeah, that was my concern with that. And this is where it comes from. They're telling members of the church, don't find fault with the church. Find a way to have faith without works. Because that's what they're doing here. That scripture mastery, faith without works is dead. And if you use the Alma 32, starting in verse 28, analogy of faith is planting the word. What are the works of the word? Well, if it's the word of wisdom, you have to actually keep the word of wisdom. And as you keep the word of wisdom over time, you will realize, hey, I had health in the navel, marrow in the bones, strength in the loins and in the sinews. Word of wisdom is correct. But no, that's not what the church is wanting you to do. They don't want you studying. They don't want you learning. They don't want you gaining intelligence, which is necessary for becoming a god. Because intellectualism, as they've now negatively termed it, is an evil in the church. And I've had leaders of the church call me that over time. Oh, you're an intellectual. I thought that was a good thing that they were saying of me. I didn't realize until I finally found an anti-intellectual talk, I think either by Ballard or Packer, back when I was locked up. And I think it may even have been way back when they got rid of the church historians, the September 6th. I think they gave a talk about it back then too. But yeah, this is a nightmare, Mormons. We are in the wrong church. And Bishop Hammond told me not to bother to come back. And I've never bothered to give in my notification, I want out of this church. It's not worth my time. And yet at the same time, it's also hilarious because the church still counts me as a member. And I'm no longer attending sacrament. And so the real membership of the church is the sacrament attendance numbers. But the church will not use those numbers because it means that they're not at 16 million. It means they're far less, more like around 3 million. So this is bad news for you, Mormons. And yeah, this is an awe-dropping. not awe-inspiring, even though I am inspired as to finding the fault with the gospel topic essays. I found the cause now. This is the source that spurned those gospel topic essays. Clayton Christensen has destroyed the church. But it's also the prophets to blame, because they fell for it, because they don't have authority from God. If they had authority from God, they would have known better and said, hey, you know, this isn't right. We shouldn't be deceiving the members. We should be like Jesus. Huh. All right, so the message has been given here. I don't know what it's going to take, Mormons. What will it take for you to realize that you need to stop going to sacrament also? You know, I witnessed several members of my ward here, of members who just stopped going to church. They figured it out. They didn't want to talk to anybody about it in the church. They just didn't want to go anymore. Membership clerk and a former secretary to the Elders Quorum presidency, and 300 others. As a ward missionary, I had to search to find out if members were still in our boundaries, and we found that 300 members had just stopped. They were no longer associated with the church, no longer going to church. 300. That's a full ward in and of itself that just stopped going in my ward boundaries alone. And so, yeah, I became another statistic under Reed Hammond, the bishop. And he's now replaced, and so now Bishop Cummins is now the bishop, but he's following the same pattern as Bishop Hammond. That's why they chose him, is because he's a conformist. And it's sad, because his kids were really awesome. Alright, enough. So yeah, like I said in the other video that's had over 300 before I went to bed last night, the prophets going to roam all together in one location, that's not good, Mormons. And if the enemy of the church, which is everybody, because when you abuse people, you make them your enemy. And that's why the churches got bulletproof glass in their administration building. That's why they have guards with guns who will protect them, is because they fear. When you don't love, you fear. And the church is coming up with all these ways to protect themselves against members, against critics who are saying, hey, what's going on here? You're lying to us. Why are you lying to us? You're supposed to be prophets of God. And they don't want to deal with it, so they pass all that to the stake presidents to handle. They fear for their lives. And it's because they have caused people to hate them. If they were love and giving of their substance, their multi-billions of dollars, to the poor, as they should, because a charity organization must keep around 10% for administration purposes. And they're expected to be able to give around 90% to the particular group that their charity is sponsoring. So if the church was a charity, then the church should be expected to be giving 90% of their multi-billions of dollars to charity, to helping elevate the poor and the needy, the sick and the afflicted, out of their position, healing the sick, making the poor equal in society, prosperous. They don't do that, do they? They consider themselves a non-profit organization, even though they've got a profit organization and an educational organization in their financial system. So as a non-profit, well, I guess they don't have to give to any non-profit entity that they're over. No, there's actually guidelines for that too. They're supposed to give 65% to whatever organization their nonprofit is about. 65%, which means 35% can go to administration purposes. Now the church covers this up because the 65 they justify as the building of temples, like the Rome Temple, and churches and publications of the Book of Mormon. That's how they justify it. So they don't have to give to the poor, but they have the welfare square and the bishop storehouses. But that's less than 0.1% that is given through that medium, through Temple Square. As a non-profit organization, corporation, sole corporation technically, the church gives in other ways other than to the poor and the needy. So the church is a fraud. They claim to be a religion, but they are acting like a non-profit business so that they don't have to act like a religion. This is fraud. And this is the church perpetuating that fraud upon you, the members. Because I used to think, oh, I'm giving to the church and the church is helping other people. That was my whole life, thinking that way. And then when I moved to this ward here in West Valley, the tithing settlement, the church came out and said, okay, we're going to read a statement now as to where the money goes. And I learned that tithing does not help the church at all. It goes towards building buildings and publishing books. Tithing no longer isn't going to helping the poor. That's fast offering. And fast offering is not required on your temple recommend. Giving the church a profit margin is on your temple recommend. And that's a sale of indulgences, as I did that video, but didn't catch anybody's attention, I guess because I used Catholic symbolisms on the cover art. And nobody in the church knows what indulgences means, because they're not Catholic. But yeah, the church is forcing you to pay them money in order that you can obtain the celestial kingdom, or have an option of obtaining the celestial kingdom. Because that even after you go through the temple ritual and become an anointed Christ and become like God, passing through the veil into the presence of God ritualistically, you are now perfect. But yet the leaders still tell you you're lower than the dirt, like King Benjamin said of the people before he baptized them and started them on the temple ritual path. Mormons missed that because the leaders aren't teaching it. And so, yeah, it's like gambling. You invest in the church to grant you eternal life, and you go through the temple, but there's no guarantee of a return on your investment. That's President Gordon B. Hinckley's definition of gambling in the priesthood session way back in the day. That's what gambling is. Investing with no guarantee of a return on your investment. And so yes, insurance companies are gambling institutions. But this isn't an economic thing. This is criticism of the church. We're finding fault so that we can cure and heal, not remedy. So, all right, we're done.